Okay, greetings to Dr. Salistaran Nagapan. So we are from Group 13, and today we will present about our project. Okay, so for the introduction, so health defined as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. So and safety is the state of being safe and the condition of being protected from risk, danger, or injury. So Osha, that is stand for Occupational Safety and Health, and FMA are the primary legislation for workplace health and safety. HIRAC is a hazard identification, risk assessment, and risk control. It is to determine the type of activity and then identify the hazard source, the risk of accident, risk control, and to reduce the hazard exposure on each work activity. HIRAC is used as the guideline in this report. Okay, from the flowchart, we will see that from the start, and then we'll go to the excavation of the ground beam, and then the preparation of reinforcement bar, and then beam formwork installation, pouring concrete for the beam, removing the formwork, and then finish. For the excavation of ground beam, a trench for the beam is excavated based on its state level. Beam is constructed directly on the ground, and the ground surface will be level and prepared for the construction of the beam. And then the excavation of the trench for the beam will be executed along the footings when the beam is used with footings. Then the installation of forms will be first step in construction process of grade beam. Okay, for the next part, it is for the preparation of the reinforcement bar. Okay, the reinforcement bar are cut into required length and bent into required shape shown on the bar schedule either manually or machinery. Laborers use the bar bending bench on which strong nails are fixed. All the reinforcement bar were bundled and clearly numbered according to the bar mark. For the beam formwork installation, formwork will be placed according to the dimension of the beam. Formwork are placed one side followed by installation of reinforcement, and the designated beam dimension are provided including sufficient reinforcement cover. For the placing reinforcement of the beam, reinforcement placement begins directly or after side on one side of the formwork is placed. Size and the number of longitudinal reinforcement and its required length, number and spacing of stirrups are provided in the structural drawing. Reinforcement or cover shall be checked after reinforcement placement is finished. And the next part is for the pouring concrete for the beam. So the beam will be casted with ready mixed concrete or on-site machine mixed concrete. The pour concrete compact and adequately using vibration equipment. And then the last part is removing formwork. After all the process had done, the side shutters of the grade beam removed 24 hours after pouring concrete. Bottom shutter cannot be removed till concrete achieve its strength. Time duration for stripping bottom shutter depends on the clear span of the beam. That's all from me, thank you.
Okay, my name is Nora Mahmudur Rahim, and I will continue with the methodology. Risk assessment is an activity undertaken to estimate risk from clearly identifiable or even quantitative or qualitative threats. Risk is a concept that describes the probability of a certain probability. Plant risk assessment and mechanical machinery are conducted to give organization a more efficient of managing risk. Initial review was conducted by the department staff to review file of complaints, responses to the complaints. The HSE Act and HSE regulations place responsibility on many sectors. They are called duty holders. Duty holders must take all steps to make sure machinery in the workplace is designed safely and guarded. Machinery can injure people by crushing, cutting, shearing, burning, tearing, and stretching. Common injuries included amputation, crushing, and electric shock. Identified several trends in which employers have been charged with injury and death to employees and contractors through the use of machinery, which is no guarding on machines at all, which is letting operators reach into dangerous parts of the machine. Next, interlock guards use a shortcut to start the machine, and effective lockout and isolation of power system. For the risk assessment, process of evaluating the probability and consequences of injury or illness arising. The three basic steps of RA are hazard identification, risk evaluation, and risk control. Workflow for the application is identify machine, which process, collect proper information, gather proper individual, observe machine in use, identify hazardous area, identify the risk level, evaluate the risk level, and create an appropriate risk reduction system. Create an appropriate risk reduction system, which is hazard elimination or substitution, engineering controls, administrative controls, and personal protective equipment.
Hello, my name is Muhammad Hairuddin bin Kasim. So I will explain further about the risk control. So for risk control or likelihood, there's a tree, which may first of all, there's a type to determine likelihood categories, which are very likely, likely, unlikely, and highly unlikely. For very likely, incident which could happen frequently at the construction site. For likely, incident which could happen occasionally. And then unlikely, which incident which could happen but rarely. And highly unlikely is incident which could happen but probably never will, is higher. And then there's a qualitative risk assessment and quantitative risk assessment. For qualitative risk assessment, process of assessing individual project risk characteristic, the probability of occurrence, and the impact. For quantitative risk assessment, this consists of produce a more expanded ranking scale than is usually achieved in qualitative analysis. Then, severity described as impacts occurred caused by the hazard in terms of harm to health, damage to properties, damage to the environment, or both of it. For the determination of severity categories, there are 5 levels, which is from level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Which is from 1, there's a negligible, that's it, that is negligible injury, and the level 2, which is minor and consists of injury or ill health required first aid only. And for the level 3, there's a moderate one, which consists injury or ill health requiring medical treatment, includes lacerations, burning, sprains, minor fractures, dermatitis, and work-related upper limb disorders. And for level 4, which is major, serious injuries of life-threatening occupational diseases such as amputations, major fractures, multiple injuries, occupational cancers, acute poisoning, disabilities, and deafness. And for the level 5, it is catastrophic, which is death, fatal diseases, or multiple major injuries. For the determination of likelihood of occurrence of hazard, there's also 5 level, which is number 5. We start from number 1. Okay, number 1, which the likelihood are rare and not expected to occur but still possible. Then number 2, remote, that is not likely to occur under normal circumstances. Level 3, occasional, which is possible or known to occur. And level 4, it is frequent, which is common occurrence. Then level 5, we got almost certain, which is continual or repeating experience. So for the risk is combination of the likelihood and severity of specified hazardous event occurring at the construction site. Risk can calculate as risk equal to hazard effect or severity times likelihood of occurrence. So for the decision for action, there's a triangle, which is the first level is elimination, which consists remove the sources of hazard completely, and the The second level is substitution, replaces hazardous work activity with less hazardous. So, and then the third level, isolation. Isolation, which means separate the hazard from people or people from hazard. And then the fourth level is the engineering, which is physical changes, or example as redesign by adding safeguards. And number 5 on the level 5, which is on after engineering, there's administrative, which is provide training procedures, signage, work rotation, safe work procedures, and etc. And the final one on the bottom of the triangle, we got PPE, provide safety helmets, safety shoes, and earmuffs. So from the triangle, we can see that from the above till down, you can see the most upper is the more effective. Down to the bottom, it gets less effective. So for the discussion, from the hierarchy table, the hazard can be classified into two parts, which is safety hazard and health hazard. Next, safety hazard is defined as unsafe working condition that can cause injury. Then, propose control measures of the most critical safety hazard. Hierarchy of risk control are used in order to reduce and prevent the risk of the hazard. The second final, providing a full-time supervision during the concreting process. And the final one, personnel protective equipment, that is PPE, can reduce the effect of the work done to the workers. For conclusion, HIRAC is an integration tool to identify, assess or measure and to control hazard and risk of any workplace and its activities. It will eliminate, reduce or control the possibility for any accidents to occur. Hierarchy process that includes all the following elements, that is identification or classification of health and safety hazards. Next, quantitative assessment of risk for all uncertain hazards. And then we got control of unacceptable health risks via appropriate countermeasures. And the final one is annual reviews of effectiveness of the process. That's all. Thank you.